All right, I think we should begin with the session now because, or else we'll be falling short of time as we have another speaker with us today. And thank you so much again to everyone who've taken out time from their busy schedules as it becomes difficult considering it's a working Tuesday. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. And as promised, we'll be discussing about the the second commitment, making it the third session for all of us together. We'll be talking about the importance of heritage, diversity, and creativity, and how it has an important part, or how it, as a commitment, kind of will help in undertaking the project. And I'll be explaining a little bit about what the commitment asks in general and what it has to offer. So I'll just quickly share my screen and Binduji, I'll just quickly brief them what exactly is the commitment, and
Yeah.
then
Go ahead.
of course
Go ahead.
we can, yes.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Even I'm interested in knowing.
Sure. All right, perfect. So just to acquaint you with what the commitment is all about, I'll just brief you. Heritage, diversity, and creativity are supposed to be known as the foundations of cultural life. If we were to express about our culture in general, we can see its replication, or its expression happening in the form of heritage that we see all around us, in the diverseness of it, what comes across, and the creativity of it, what which helps us in making it as diverse as possible, making them to be the essential foundations of the culture that we tend to express about. What this commitment talks about is, it talks about creating conditions, making them much more feasible in order to be able to express about these three core structures or core foundations of the culture, by creating a dialogue between proximity, like there might be certain aspects which might be there around you, and the visibility. Of course, these are two different things. It's much more important. It's also, it's important to first of all recognize these things. Also, it's much more important to give them due recognition and make them visible to others to see it, making a dialogue between tradition and modernity for more dynamics. At times, we've been on and off discussing about these things, how a lot of traditional practices have been shunned away, considering they are not very much adaptable to the changes that are happening with respect to our society, with respect to our thinking, or with respect to our current context, with in terms of your living conditions and everything, how they are not that adaptable. And culture is all about adapting. It's hand holding between what was there and what is supposed to come. It's a bridge between the two, and it should aid and help in achieving that. And in order to understand that, culture should be considered as a junction between the symbolic and the expression of course, the heritage, diversity and the creativity part of it, in the various forms, the values, beliefs, and practices that we tend to practice in as humans, right? Integration of both multicultural strategies that recognize people with different cultural backgrounds, where we live together, where we come together to experience that, and intercultural. Of course, there is difference between multicultural and intercultural strategies that create bonds between them, irrespective of what, like it is multicultural or intercultural. Inter is something that happens between cross-cultural, right? Something happens between two. And multicultural is where you take account of the different cultures that are possibly there in your city, and accounting them for what they are, and making them visible enough for other people to see. I'll now stop sharing my screen, and we'll come back to the commitment again, where I'll be explaining what the commitment wants and seeks from you within the project. I'll now hand it over to Binduji. Binduji, a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today. Binduji, I know a lot of chapter members are will be very much familiar with her. She's head of the department which looks after the craft and communities, and is very much involved with this aspect that we're talking about of heritage, diversity, and creativity. So thank you, Binduji. Over to you. Just a second. I think you're on mute. I'll unmute you. Or yeah, yes.
That better?
Okay.
So thank you. And I'd like to welcome all the participants, and also congratulations, many congratulations on the Republic Day, and also on our upcoming Foundation Day, which is on the 27th, as you all know. When I was asked to give this talk on linking these three important things, and for regeneration of cities, to me, the one symbol of all these that link us, all these things together, is crafts, is our diverse and many crafts for generations that we have used, are using. However, we do not see them as symbols of our cultural diversity, or in fact, even of inclusiveness, and how they strengthen our roots, and how we identify with Indian crafts as a strong symbol. We all do at a level, maybe subconscious level, but we never actually, or many of us don't, think of them as a great symbol that unites all of India. Besides the fact that, of course, it is after agriculture, the major sector of employment, I would like to talk to you about a city that is dear to all of us, Varanasi. In Varanasi, we all go there or dream about going there for various reasons, the spiritual reasons, for their beautiful weaving traditions, for the architecture, for the ghats. When we are walking through that city and all the beautiful things that we see, or we aspire to purchase, or we want to visit, we don't usually think of how these things were created, whether it was architecture, crafts, buildings, the beautiful Banarsi saris, or even going down to the sacred moli that is tied to us when we visit the temples. Now, these are all created, all through the generations have been created by various communities and sects. They're created maybe by a particular community, but used by another community, like the moli. Now, the moli is, of course, a very Hindu symbol, mostly. But the Rangres, who is giving these colors, may not be a Hindu. Now, why don't we need to celebrate this? And we need to educate our children, our peers, our colleagues on how in our everyday life we are actually, it's such a intrinsic part of us, our diversity. Now, to revive that, there may be many programs, or there may not be. Organization like INTACH, of course, is always trying this, and I'm so happy that it's being formalized in this course. We have, through our division, and I also work with the architectural division, for many years, we have worked in a city or fort called Jaisalmer. And while we were working there, we never actually thought of what we were doing as far as promotion of our rich cultural diversity. I'm going to take you through a small presentation on we worked for 20 years, just as a showcase of how INTACH has been actually working in this area for so many years. So will you help me with that presentation, please?
Just a second, I'll share.
If you could do that.
Before beginning, I would like to add on to what Binduji has been elaborating, that this interaction will probably help you understand what all features you need to look into while we're talking about heritage, diversity, and creativity. So just look into what there is exactly.
Now,
I think it's visible, yeah?
yes.
All right.
Jaisalmer, I'm sure everybody knows, the Golden Fort, made even more popular by Satyajit Ray. INTACH started working on this. Sorry, will you go to the next slide, please? Can you go to the next slide, please? As I can't do it from my phone. Oh.
Can you see it?
But can you go to the next slide?
All right. Just a second. Now?
I can't see it, but maybe the others can.
It is moving actually. I can see it flipping. So.
Okay, well, I can't see it. I don't know why.
Just a second, just try this.
So Kriti,
Is
I
it
can't
visible?
see it. Yeah, now
No?
it's visible. Now
All
it's
right,
visible.
I'll try and put it to maximum mode, and then you can probably see it. Just a second. Is it better now? Can you see?
Yeah, I can see. I'm not sure if
Binduji, can you see?
Binduji can see it.
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Then please go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So INTACH started working in Jaisalmer in 1995. And it was a very strange, I mean, we had done some studies earlier on the Jaisalmer fort, but we were actually requested to visit Jaisalmer fort with a person representing the World Monument Fund, who had heard about INTACH and wanted actually to support something in Jaisalmer. So that's how we actually started the real work in Jaisalmer with the convener, of course, who's sadly no longer with us, Brajraj Singh Ji Maharaval. And when I went to Jaisalmer on this first mission of taking this representative, both things struck me: the sheer beauty of the place and the sheer decay of the place. And I could not for the life of me fathom how this amazing architectural wonder was just being just being neglected to such an extent, because I think nowhere else in the world we have a living fort with this kind of, it's like a living museum. Every stone is carved, every bit is beautiful, and the light and the way people have been living there for generations in their small homes. And we thought to ourselves that we are going to make this into a mission. And the chapter was very, very this thing. So these are some of the ruins that we have worked on. Could you go to the next slide? Yeah, this was the gates to enter the fort. Again, we had to restore them. The next slide, please. So the Maharaval had this in the fort, a palace. I mean, he has 3 or 4 palaces, and we have actually restored all of them, but this is the first one. And there was no museum. And what we did not want actually was a royal museum. We wanted, for the first time, I think that was done, we wanted a museum on the life and the culture of the city and the region. So this museum was set up, and it had in the Ranika Mahal, and these were the various activities that we started doing in this palace, along with this interpretation center and museum. We started arts and crafts training center, we started a spice center, children's library, computer training center, and conference hall, of course, and we had an INTACH office there. And this became a very, very vibrant place where actually the people of the fort started coming in, and they were of all communities. Surprisingly, in Jaisalmer Fort, there are very few Rajput families. There are a lot of Brahmins and there are other communities, but very few. And they started meeting in this cohesive way. They were most excited that computer training is being done for the children. It was absolutely new to them. The Arts and Crafts Training Center. Again, nobody there had thought that what they do in their daily homes, the ladies and things like that, actually has a market outside. But it was also a real fun place for them. It started reviving this dead palace and it's the areas around it. And after that, a lot more has happened. Can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. I'm sorry, because I'm a bit technology challenged. And yeah, these are just photographs of the ladies there. And I think some children also should be somewhere. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, so these are everyday objects now. As you can see, these are not royal objects. These are objects that these people have been using for generations. And the interest, actually, it was amazing, the interest of the visitor who thought he's coming to a palace, a fort palace. But the interest, because we can all relate to these things. We have used them, our grandparents have used them. And it's just a thread, connecting your heritage, your cultural diversity, and its revival or the interest. Next slide. This is, of course, just to showcase you the amazing craft skills of stone carving that still exist. Now, this is the thing again. These are all done by a certain community, but there are another section of our society uses it. So it's such a deep link, the hands holding each other, actually. Can we go to the next slide? Sorry about. Yeah, so these are, of course, the Art and Craft Center. We also started a common facility center. Can we go to the next slide? Which may not be in this presentation. We can stop here. We started a common facility center in a small village next to Ramkunda village, where we got funding from the Ministry of Handicrafts to start this. It was quite a large grant at that time, 20 lakh rupees. And this center, the specific thing of this center was that it is open to any craft person to come and use the machinery, use the space to make his products. No charge is taken. And I believe hundreds of craft masons and stone carvers come here. All our initiatives, I've not shown you everything that we did there. This has generated a lot of income, of course, to daily wage workers, masons, carpenters, but also then, which we are not mentioned, to the ladies doing work at in their homes with their embroidery and all. We also restored Annapurna Bhandar and Raja Mahal, Harraji Mahal, and one of them is another museum, and there's sculpture kind of space also. And while we were doing this, I used to get, at that time, now it's all being handled as it should be by either the chapter or the people involved, hotels who were going towards building new things with cement, and because we did everything with lime, and we started training these stone carvers to make modern things also, that they would like products from the Jaisalmer stone products. And I believe they've become very, very popular now. So this is an initiative, INTACH initiative, which is a very good example of what we have now formally set out to do with the IHA. So that's my presentation. But beyond that, at the policy level, I would like to say that policy is very good, formulation of policy. Getting it embedded is the most important thing in the government, because in the end, I would say government is the people's biggest client. If the government at the central level or at the state level or at the chapter level can accept our policy through understanding why we are doing this, then of course. However, having said that, one should also look at all the schemes and the funding that is already available in various departments, the zonal centers, the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Tourism. And what we really need, I would really recommend, is that somebody, maybe IHA with its training interns or INTACH, that somebody should begin with making a ready reckoner of what is available, where the gaps are, and how to link all these things and to make them available to the general public at large. Because we keep talking within our silo of the interested population already. However, to bring up the interest of the general public, which can start using it and may need to use it, is very important. So with that, I'd like to end my little talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Binduji. It was, it becomes better if a person who is working within our organization comes up and tells us about the different aspects that one needs to consider. Of course, you might have understood a little bit about the different, the foundations that we're talking about, what all to seek while understanding the topic of heritage, diversity, and creativity. So yeah, thank you, Binduji,
Thank you very much
for your detailed presentation. We absolutely loved it. And and we'll, of course, we should take it up to the organization itself and see how that can be worked out. So yeah, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on to the next part of the presentation that I'll probably tell you about is the different steps or different things that one needs to consider while pursuing this specific commitment. जब इस commitment के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो what all things or what all aspects we need to see with respect to our city, see how that city is performing. So I'll again share my screen and tell you about the different aspects that we need to look into while catering to the commitment of heritage, diversity, and creativity. One needs to understand while seeing its city is that is there presence of any public policy that are related to culture? Of course, we are talking about culture. Culture is a core center of our practice here. Even with respect to this particular project, it's the core of it. And in order to understand and apply it, we need to see if there is any public policy that is going on in your city. And if so is the case, what are those policies? Identification of such policies is very necessary. And then to see how these policies are catering to culture in diverse and different directions. Is there any cell or department that manages these cultural and heritage policies? If so, how? And if not, then how do we go about implementing them? Because that kind of makes the core of the practice. Is there any presence of cultural budget by the local government in line with its cultural responsibilities? Or it can be, cultural budget laid down by the national or international standards in some way or the other. Is there presence of such budget in any form? Does the local government support the existence and accessibility of facilities, all sorts of facilities related to culture? Or do they have designated spaces and venues which cater to training, creation, and production of culture in any form of way. For example, there can be art residencies created for artists in your city, facilitated by the government, the local government or the state government or national government in any form. If so, then what is the outcome of it? And if not, then what is the possibility of creating such repositories or such facilities for people who are involved in the diversification and creation of culture or heritage in any form. It can be in form of any projects also. There's lots of fundings available with respect to CSR or any other methods, and what all organizations are involved in that. So you can probably go ahead and identify such things. Presence of any policies or programs that explicitly encourage the mutual recognition of the diversity of cultural expressions and intercultural projects. There can be certain, I can give you a small example of, exchange programs that we usually tend to do. They might not be similar, but of course, something to, just to give you an idea, where, you see cultural programs, exchange programs happening between university students. A person from India might go to some other country and vice versa. So you see a lot of exchange of cultural expressions happening in the whole process. And again, a lot of information, a lot of knowledge is shared in the due process. So yeah, this is a very small and simple example. Of course, there can be lots many, and yeah, you can understand and recognize such things in your city. Again, use of local cultural products to have a significance and balanced presence within the city's overall activities to promote this creativity and diversity. For instance, all these conferences keep happening, all these annual meetings, even with respect to government departments, they keep happening. So what can be done? All these mementos, they are to attend the event, they are handed out some or the other memento. So just giving them a notebook or a pencil or whatever, some stationery. Instead, local arts and crafts can be promoted, and some sort of a memento can be given in that direction. So that can be a possible way to to promote your culture with respect to your city. So these are certain ways that you have to, with respect to this particular commitment, that you have to identify and probably seek in your city and see how your city is performing with respect to this commitment. Now, to quote an example of how what we did in Bhopal, and what all probabilities did we see with respect to this commitment, we have Akriti over here again, and she'll be explaining what all did we see in the city. So yeah, Akriti, hi.
Hi, good evening to everyone. And so I was the person in charge to work on Culture 21 in Bhopal, and with respect to this commitment, we collected a lot of data, and so we'll see. I mean, I'll be sharing with you the radar report, and we can see further that with respect to each and every action point, how we actually came up with the checklist, and we could say, that these things are in place, these things are not there, what needs to be done about it. So just a second, let me share my screen. Sukriti, you have to enable the screen sharing.
Sorry. Yes, sure. Just a second. I'm done. See.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is my screen visible to all? Is visible?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So with respect to this particular commitment, the first thing that we did was that for each and every action point, because these are the action points which actually help us in understanding this commitment better, and then actually understand that what needs to be done. If we are saying that that there's this commitment which talks about heritage, diversity, and creativity, we cannot just go haywire talking about heritage, creativity, and diversity. We need to have certain action plan which can ground the whole thing, and there comes some tangible output of the whole idea or the whole concept. So basically, these 10 action points are these are the framework, or one can say that this is the framework which can help us, and which actually helped us in case of Bhopal, understanding how exactly as a city, Bhopal understands, knowingly or unknowingly, I would say, has worked towards this particular commitment. So the first action point is establishing special department or cell in charge of culture, heritage policies, and other aspects. So certainly, I think the ones over there in the last presentation or last webinar, we spoke about cultural rights. So joining or adding to the same commitment, I would say that the first thing now that we had to identify is that, is there actually any government department or any stakeholder department or any institution that is working in this direction? Because until unless we have an entity, we have a government entity which is working towards it, we really cannot see the entire picture of the city. So as human beings, since culture develops on the human activities, practices, traditional knowledge systems, but at the end of the day, it becomes really important to combine all of it to actually share, exchange the knowledge. So government department or any institution in this case plays a very pivotal role in actually taking this whole idea or taking this whole notion further, a step further. So the first thing was, definitely Bhopal has a Department of Culture, and definitely, I mean, most of the states, they have Department of Culture in place. But then when we talk about Department of Culture, what are the various sub-organizations or institutions that are working under Department of Culture? So Culture Department has three main, I'll just zoom my screen. Yeah, so it has a Directorate of Culture working under it. So you have Directorate of Culture is there, then you have Archaeology Department, Archives and Museums, and then there's Directorate of Swaraj Bhavan. So these are the three major directorates that work under Culture Department. And within these three directorates also, there are multiple organizations or bodies that are working, and they are funded by these multiple directorates, which is certainly funded by Culture Department. So you can see the list over here. This is a snippet from the Culture Department annual report, and this entire organizational structure is there in place. And since the reason that I say that this becomes a very pivotal thing, that we have certain organizations in place, because now until unless we have these organizations, there's nothing going around. Not to say that there's really nothing going around at the level of community, but then if we talk about at the city level, since we have these institutions in place, so you have, obviously then you'll have activities that are being organized or events being organized in these particular institutions. Okay, so one of the most famous institution, I think all of you would have heard about, is Bharat Bhavan. That becomes part of Directorate of Culture. Ravindra Bhavan is there. So these are cultural places, cultural centers, you can say, where from time to time you have various activities happening all around the year. And all around the year, they promote a lot of diverse activities. Then this Directorate of Archaeology, Archives and Museums takes care of the tangible heritage of the city and the state. And then this Directorate of Swaraj Bhavan, this is a dedicated directorate which is specifically working towards the martyrs, or so you have institutions like Shaheed Bhavan, Shaurya Smarak, all these places coming into this. Then the most important thing that comes under Directorate of Culture is Madhya Pradesh Culture Council. Now this Culture Council is a very interesting organization, because you have various academies that are part of MP Culture Council. So these art academies, they promote art, they promote music, mostly music, they promote dance, they promote various local languages that are spoken, and for each and every language or for each literature of each and every language or each and every, you can say, group of people, you have these dedicated academies. So in a way, as I think you would have, if you are aware about all the commitments, so this somewhere helped us in understanding and looking culture with respect to education also, which is I think the next commitment, which we'll be talking about in the next webinar. So this, yeah, so this is the brief of action point number 1. So certainly we have a culture department, we have a special department, cell in charge to take care of these things. Now, the reason that we have not given a score of 10 for this particular action point was because we did not find that there's any written cultural policy per se. So you have activities happening all around the year, and but then there is no guiding document, there is no framework as to say that, you know, if something is happening in this year, or if I'm planning something to some, you can say, some activity, some event being planned in this year, there's no guarantee of it that it'll be happening in the next year. Or if there is something which we are promoting in some art form or some cultural activity which we are promoting in this particular time period, we are not sure that that'll happen in the coming years also. So there's a chance that it might die away with time, something new comes up. That gives an organical growth edge to it. But the most important thing is that it also it's actually a double-edged sword. So it helps also, but also there's a huge risk of losing something over the time. So we have to make sure that there's certain policy document in place or in picture, so that things are not lost with time, and whatever is happening continues to happen, and we can add to it rather than something, we losing something. So that's why, for this reason, it has been given score of 7. Coming to the second action point, it talks about culture budget, certainly, because now again, the reason I'm saying that it's pivotal to have some government organization in place, because if we have a government organization, definitely we'll be allocating some budget for it. So we have culture department, and dedicated budget is there for these cultural activities. Each and every directorate has a dedicated budget, and all these 3 directorates that come under culture department, they have a dedicated budget for various activities. So for example, if we talk about Directorate of Archaeology, Archives and Museums, they have a dedicated budget for archaeological activities, they have a dedicated budget for archives, for public libraries, for museums. Same goes with all the with the other 2 directorates also. So they have a dedicated budget for all these activities in place. So now we have a dedicated budget, so we definitely work towards it, because we have funding in place, because most of the times getting funding for certain thing becomes the most challenging part. So that thing is resolved. So we just have to streamline, or we just have to understand like in which direction we want to further proceed. So a mandate is there, a vision is there, and funding is there. So the basic foundational things are in place, so we can further proceed from there. So it lays a very good foundation to actually take things further. Then the next action point is supporting the existence and accessibility of different spaces and venues dedicated to training, creation, and production of culture. So we do not have art residencies or art factories or laboratories over there, but then we have a lot of cultural facilities, as I was talking earlier also. So we have a lot of cultural facilities that are there, and that enabling of these activities only happens because of the dedicated budget for these particular facilities that we have in the city. So we have Ravindra Bhavan, we have Bharat Bhavan, Shaheed Bhavan, various academies. Tribal Museum is certainly there, one of the most important places, I mean, in the past few years, and a lot of activities actually are housed in Tribal Museum. Then the next action point is encouraging artistic creation and contact between different social groups by promoting and celebrating diverse cultural events. So because we have these large number of cultural institutions, so and all these institutions, fortunately, they are very active in promoting cultural activities. And they try to actually bring a lot of people diverse. They actually try to include the diversity into this picture. So this is the reason that we have these institutions in place. Uh, that becomes a very important thing to actually promote these activities, and you have these activities happening all around the year. Then, so this is a list of the activities focusing on diversity of cultural events. So there are events that celebrate different local cultures. Then there are events that celebrate different festivals, events. Then there are events that celebrate culture at national and international level. Most of you, I think, would have heard about Lokrang, which is a very famous cultural event that happens once in every year around January. And earlier it used to invite people from the country, but now they have actually started inviting people at like international level also. So you have these events happening. Then you have various religious activities. So like Santavani, Bhajan Sandhya, Peer Parai Janire. So these the place from where I've got this data is from the cultural events calendar is there. So that they have this annual calendar where they mark all these events, and like right in the beginning of the year, they know that all around the year what would be the activities. So some activities are there which happen every year, and so they know that time frame in which that will be happening, or they have a tentative idea of it. So when we try to understand the the frequency of these activities, you could actually make out that some activities were common, few activities would happen twice or thrice a year also, few would happen once a year, but they were happening. And we actually went to go about and read almost 5 to 6 consecutive cultural calendars that Directorate of Culture issues, and they had these activities. So from there, we could get an idea about what are the cultural activities that are happening, or the events that are happening in the city, and what is the frequency of it. It actually helps us in understanding the point, the action point also, that where we are lacking, what needs to be done more, what can be added to it. So these are few things that actually this database that is already there helps us in actually taking the cause further. Then there are certain media clippings of Lokrang. Then there are other activities also. Lokrang is one of the most famous ones, so a lot of media clippings from that. Bhopal Literature and Art Festival, I think in 2019, it was the first time that actually Bhopal hosted Literature Fest. And it was a successful one because they invited a lot of people. And again, the thing that we have, once we have these facilities, or once we have these centers in place, we actually can come up, because there's a dedicated space in the city where you can actually house these activities. So then we have to think about these things, that what could be the various activities, what could be the various cultural activities that cater into most of the parameters of culture, and what could be the target audience, or the kind of the people that we are actually wanting to become a part of it, as participants or as visitors, or anyway. So this was action point number 4. Now we have action point number 5, formulation of policies and programs which encourage mutual recognition of diversity of cultural expressions and intercultural projects. So again, as I said, that we do not have, the most important thing here, that every time, most of the action points, they talk about policies and programs. So we certainly have programs happening. We have a lot of groundwork that is happening, but the framework is missing. So I would say for this particular commitment, what I found was that there needs to be a other way around approach, where in the standard scenario, I would say that first we have a policy, then we come up to the activities. Here we have activities, we have a lot of things happening on ground. So we have to take a step back and come to the policy level based on the kind of diverse activities that are happening. So there are no policies, but then there are certainly programs that encourage mutual recognition of diversity of cultural expressions, because As I said earlier also, all these institutions or all these organizations actually take into consideration that what could be the various kinds of activities. So either they would have some specific activities only dedicated to the female participants, or dedicated to the specially abled people, or dedicated to a particular community or particular art form. So that diversity is, that's why initially also I said that diversity is knowingly or unknowingly in place. So yeah, so coming to the next action point, introducing policies and programs which protect and promote linguistic diversity, especially with regard to minority or minoritized languages. So certainly I would say for this particular action point, we have a lot of academies which are part of MP Culture Council, which I discussed earlier also. And all these academies, they are dedicated to specific languages and linguistic diversity. So you have Urdu Academy, you have for Hindi, you have Bengali, you have for Bhojpuri, and various other regional languages. Then, and regularly these academies also at their own level, they actually have these activities. So literary events to promote linguistic diversity, you have Prasang, which is discussion on literary contribution of an eminent literary scholar. Then we have Kavi Sammelan, Rachna Part. So Rachna Part is recital of poems and stories. Samvad is there, which is discussion with famous personalities. Then Sangoshti is there, that organized by various academies for poetry recital on various topics. Vimarsh is there. Vimarsh is again the same thing where we talk about, it's a discussion program. Then Kavita Prasang, then Vaicharik Goshti, then Film Samvad. Sorry. Film Samvad is there. So it is a discussion on movies. Then Part or Paricharcha, again, it's a discussion of a discussion event. So you can see that we could actually list out these particular 10 events which are regularly happening. So these particular events, they happen like twice a year or thrice a year. You would see that these events are happening. So one or the other academy would be in charge of it, and then they so you have these academies in place, and then these academies, so within these academies also these events happen. Also, if not, then you have these definitely Bharat Bhavan, Ravindra Bhavan are there where these activities are housed. So this is there. Then again, as I said earlier, also you have these academies. So Adivasi Lokala Evam Boli Vikas Academy is there, Sahitya Academy, Sindhi Sahitya, Urdu, Marathi, Ustad Alauddin Khan Sangeet Academy, Punjabi Sahitya, Bhojpuri Sahitya. So there you can see, like you can see from these name of institutions that the range of diversity that is there. So yeah. Then coming to the next action point, introducing and promoting policies which support various forms of art. So as I said earlier also, no policy for it, but then there are various art forms which are promoted, and there's a list of activities. Then formulating policies which protect cultural heritage in all dimensions, both tangible and intangible. So this is something which is, you can see, it is at national level. So this is not a point which I would say is specific to any city. Every state, every in the country, they have this this governing framework is already there. So heritage, be it a protected site by the state archaeology or be it a protected site by ASI, they all function on the acts that are there in place. And we have most of the acts are there, Amasra, ancient monuments and archaeological remains and sites. So this act is definitely there. Most of you would have heard about it. So for this particular action point, I would say that there's already a given framework at a national level, and the heritage sites within the city are actually being taken care under this. Now, about the heritage sites which are not protected by the State Department or by ASI, either they are protected by municipal corporation, but then municipal corporation in most of the cases doesn't work exactly based on how the act specifies to. And also then there are a lot of challenges when talking about these things, because heritage cell is definitely there with municipal corporation. Smart city is also working for heritage structures. And then for intangible heritage, you have this Hastashilp Vikas Nigam, Cottage and Rural Industries Department. So there are a lot of departments, but this whole a holistic framework to actually protect our tangible and intangible heritage, you can say, or you can say tangible with respect to intangible, or intangible with respect to tangible, is not there. So a policy document where we talk about these things can address this particular point also, where we can talk about tangible heritage, how we can understand it or how we can protect it if it's not a protected site by ASI or by State Department. So yeah, so for this reason, again, as I said, that we have not given 10 to most of the action points, but there are few action points where we could actually see a lot of work that has happened. And the action points where you see the score is less actually is helpful, because then it helps us think that, okay, so there's an action point, there's a score this, and it's not 10. So we need to work to make it 10. So this activity is basically helpful in actually, as I said earlier also, it's basically helpful in grounding the reality, the current framework, the current ground reality with respect to culture. Then ensuring, next action point, and ensuring local cultural products also have significant and yet balanced presence within the city's overall cultural activities. Certainly, MP Tourism Board has done a lot, and they are very, they make sure that they have a good reach when it comes to encouraging cultural products or cultural, so events and all are taken care by Directorate of Culture, but MP Tourism Board is actually playing a very pivotal role, because they are actually helping bring more people into the city as tourists, and then a lot of products that are outcome of cultural activities, a lot of products like clothes, jewelry, sculptures, handicrafts, they are being promoted by MP Tourism, and they have a dedicated store also, which is there in a lot of places. Tourism department has established its different outlets. As of now, I'm forgetting the name. Mrignaini is the store, and they sell a lot of these products. So it's a local emporium, and it's actually funded by the MP Tourism. So that helps in a lot of ways to actually make all these products and all these cultural outcomes of cultural activities. It helps, it increases the reach for the people. So then the last action point, involving international and national cultural cooperation programs which pay special attention to protection and promotion of cultural diversity. So as I said earlier also, Lokarang is one of the most important cultural event that happens all around once in every year for it's like 4-5 days or a week, and a lot of activities happen. So major highlights of the event would be that they have Ramayani, they have Dharohar, that is an event dedicated to classical dance and musical performances. Then Lok Rag, where they try to display, or they have this event which is dedicated to the music of Madhya Pradesh. Then Deshantar, which showcases dance performances by international artists. Then so on and so forth. So you can actually have a look at it. So these are the 10 action points. And for this particular commitment, we found that the city is doing a lot towards this. But as I said earlier, also the framework is definitely missing for it. So when we talk about culture policy, we can actually address a lot of points. So it'll help us actually make that the policy document or any guiding framework, we can call it. So it'll actually help us in grounding it more and cater to a lot of parameters which are actually mentioned in some way or the other in all these action points. So I guess with this, I'll end my presentation. And yeah, thank you all for patiently listening. And thanks a lot.
All right, we'll take our questions now. There were certain queries, not queries as to, they were more of suggestions. One of the speakers said if the text could be a bit more visible from the next time, so that they can probably see what's written inside. So we can try and work on that. We'll definitely work on that. They just want, I think in the first action point, there was a flow chart that we made, right? Where each
Yeah.
and every, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can probably work on that. And any other question apart from that, we can take it now because it's almost time. No, no questions. Is there any possibility that it all went, it was not that very well understood? Let there be chapter sessions be organized instead of us. This is a chapter session. This is something that we are doing just specifically for chapters instead of single session. These single sessions are meant for the 9 commitments. If we try to, we did that in the earlier session, the first session that was there. We tried to give you a brief of the whole thing. Now we are taking on each and every commitment step by step because it's a very detailed thing to understand. And if I am understanding you right, Mr. KK Ramakrishnan, I think that's what you mean.
Yeah, look, yeah. I mean,
All
yeah,
right.
it's a very good incident, curtain raiser, I can say.
Yes.
But
Yes.
why I asked in this way is like, let this be considered as an introductory kind, so it can be followed by a capsule or a series. I mean, in the sense like what can be done is like as alternate or schedule. And then number 2 is like as and when the details also can go through as a handout or something for the participants as well. So it will serve the purpose in having a good connect. Alok, yeah, this is just my thought process I want to share.
Okay. All right. So for that, what we can do is you can attend these this particular series, the webinars that we are doing simultaneously, and along with it, you can probably fix a time with us where I can probably, there might be a possibility that you might have missed the earlier sessions. I'm not really sure about it. If in case you might have or not, we can probably take it up again. You can just write an email to me. I'll be personally, explaining each and everything again. I don't mind doing that. So we can probably do that. And also there is not much of the material that can be very useful for you, considering this was done for a specific city. Okay, what I can do is, there is this particular blue booklet that we prepared specifically for chapters. I can hand it out to you, where all these commitments are mentioned along with their action points. So it might be a bit more easier for you to go back and understand these action points more. I completely agree with that you don't have anything to go back to and understand. So we can do that. I can, if you want, I can just write down your email address or drop, I'll write down my email address. So
Yeah, sure.
whosoever is interested
Yeah, that's
can
absolutely
drop,
fine.
that
Yeah, that's
they
really
can drop
nice.
me an email and I'll then take it forward, because a lot of chapters are doing that. I have certain meetings fixed with some chapters regarding that, and also with respect to a lot of other aspects that one might have to consider while taking up projects, a lot of financial aspects also. So we can look into that as well alongside that.
Okay, so will you be pinging the email in the chat so that I can make
Yes,
a note?
I have dropped in my email for everyone. Please
Okay.
feel free to write to me.
Okay,
And
INTACH, Navsari, and RF Umrigar. Okay, I'll make a note. Thanks,
all right.
Alokya. But the session is indeed good and very well organized. I know, considering the constraints and lot of things and the virtual mode and all those pandemic, but still it's a very good. Thanks for
Thank you
letting in
so
the
much.
session.
Means a lot. Means a lot. Thank you so much. Okay, there is this. Okay, Mr. Umrigar is there. Hi. Can you send in the handbook so far explained? Okay, perfect. I will send it across. No issues. And then
I have got
we
a
have.
question.
Okay, Manish, Mr. Manish Sinha.
Look,
Hi.
I am convener of Gaya chapter.
Yeah.
So the chapter has been just inaugurated on 19th of September.
Yes.
So Gaya, as you know, is a very, very culturally and heritage-wise a rich city. So we
Yes.
have got a number of local theatre groups in Gaya.
Mm-hmm.
So just a broad guidance as to how we can get them involved in the preservation of heritage. There are certain groups. So I was just thinking on those lines, how can they be channelized?
Have you tried, sir? Have you tried talking to the chapters division regarding it, Captain Shukla?
I will
Because
be talking to him also.
yes, because the chapter, this particular session is meant specifically for this program, the chapters who are interested in taking up this program. Of course, there can be different ways जहाँ पे आप समझ सकते हैं that we can in particular pursue this activity. Apart from that, of course, there are these scheduled activities that a chapter has to do in order to be able to propagate culture or heritage in their own ways. And Gaya, of course, as you said, they have beautiful theater groups. So yeah, they'll have certain activities defined for you. You can get in touch
Because
with them.
one such person who is the director of a theater group, we have made him a life member also. So it was just for this purpose that we somehow channelize their energies. Let us see. We'll be talking to you.
We can utilize it in this project itself. It will be a good opportunity.
Yeah. We'll be doing it in a variety of ways. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, then. All right. Okay. All right. I think we have questions. If at all anyone has any other question, we'll be happy to take it for 1-2 minutes more, and then we'll probably end the session and meet again sometime soon to summarize it all, whatever we discussed. Of course, there'll be different manifestations of the foundations that we talked about of heritage, diversity, and creativity in different and various forms that you will see happening around in your local context as well as in the context of your city. So your job will be to first of all understand and identify them, and of course see them with respect to the 10 action points that Akriti beautifully explained, in what way they are being taken up by the city administration and what are they doing about it. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much again. It means a lot for us because since we are doing it for the chapters, it takes a lot of effort. We completely understand to show up each and every time consistently. So very commendable, very commendable thing that you do. Thank you so much.
Sukriti, I think
Yes.
we can tell them that the Facebook live that we have just streamed
Yes,
for
thank
another
you.
day, so they can
Sure,
recommend everyone to watch.
Sure,
whoever
thank
will
you.
go.
Perfect. So the last time what happened was we did this. We usually make this whole thing live on the Facebook because a lot of us face problems with technology. We do all of the time. So earlier what we did was we removed the video from the Facebook after a while. We'll probably keep that thing active for 24 hours. If you want, we can keep it active, the link and the video for a bit more longer time if you want that. And after that, we'll probably remove it because it's meant specifically for chapters. And yeah, that's why. So you can go back and see about the discussion again, review it. And yeah, you can ask your peers to look into it, other chapter members who might be interested. And yeah, you can always write back to me for all the queries that you've put across today. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for joining again today. And I'll see you next month in Feb. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good month ahead. Hope you are keeping healthy and safe. So yeah, bye. Thank you, Akriti. We'll see you around. Thank you. Thank you, Binduji. Bye.
Bye.